There's no more important topic right now than what's going on with artificial intelligence, and that's quite a big deal.
Yeah, let's get right to it, because Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick joined CBS's Face the Nation to talk about tariffs bringing jobs back to America, but the CBS anchor wanted to catch him in a gotcha moment.
You realize trillions of dollars of factories are going to be built in America. That's huge GDP. The factories being built in America are huge.
That takes years, and you've said that robots are going to fill those jobs.
Well, there are serious questions about this. Robots are cheaper, they don't need healthcare, and they don't complain. But Justin Haskins, let's go ahead and bring him in. He's here with us in Dallas today, and we're so excited to have you because, like MP was saying, this is such an important topic. And we look at this. So why should we not be afraid that a robot is going to take my job?
Right. Well, there's no question the AI revolution is going to change everything. And I do think people need to be prepared. I wouldn't say afraid. I think they need to be prepared. They need to start thinking about ways to be valuable in the economy that's a little bit more non-traditional. And certain sectors are going to be phased out because of AI. And it's not necessarily things that people think about. For example, HR jobs. A lot of HR jobs are going to go away because of this. A lot of lawyers are going to be out of work because of this. You don't need contract lawyers when you have AI doing contract law at a better rate. And they've done studies on this. Certain kinds of doctors, even radiologists, for example, their whole job is to read x-rays and, MRI scans, things like that. AI can do that better than people can do that. So we need to start thinking about, if you're watching the show right now, think about your job, think about what you do, and think about how artificial intelligence might impact that. But I do think there's going to be lots of jobs as a result of artificial intelligence, because what's going to end up happening is a lot of the capital that goes into paying people is going to go elsewhere. It's going to be invested into other kinds of things. New industries that we can't even imagine are going to come up. And a lot of these sort of really traditional jobs, like plumbers, for example, electricians, these are going, I think welders, I think these jobs are actually going to become even more valuable over time, because we're going to have massive new buildings that we need for data centers, for new power plants. We're going to need far more power than we have right now in order to power the AI revolution.
So, let's talk about, I love what you're saying, by the way, because, in the beginning of this, it was a bunch of elite professionals saying, well, we got to worry about, these jobs for these people who live in the middle of the country. They're all going to lose their job. And as it turns out, a lot of paper pushers are actually going to lose their frickin' job, and all of a sudden realize they are threatened by AI, perhaps even more than others. But let's talk about the main thing that everyone talks about when it comes to this, when they bring up an example, and that is the factories. Now, my kind of take on this has always been, well, look, do you want factories or not, right? Because if you want factories, the factories of the future are going to be automated. And, we had talked about this a little bit before the show. I was talking to you, I reminded my friend David Goldman, who's someone who's been on the China beat for a long time, older guy who used to work with Chinese companies. And this is going back, 5+ years ago. If we can show people this, he was showing people video of the first Chinese automated port, a while ago, when you could see the technology. You can see on the screen behind me where the robots have already taken over the port. So what is your take on this when it comes to the actual automated factory?
Right. Historically speaking, the number one reason jobs have left America, manufacturing jobs, is because the cost of human labor has been too high in America relative to a lot of these developing countries. And China is one of those countries, and they benefited significantly from that. But automation powered by AI is allowing countries to build automated factories that are even that produce products at an even lower rate than what cheap labor, human labor, can produce. And that's why China is one of the global leaders in automation. It's because even though they have cheap manual labor, human labor, they can produce things even for even less with automation. So that's actually a really good thing for America, because if you can produce an automated factory in China, you can produce it here. There's no reason why you can't do that. That levels the playing field and allows us to produce products here at the same relative cost. And it's not going to be perfect, of course, but relatively speaking, as China is doing right now.
So, is it fair? am I crazy then for thinking this? Because my take has been like, look, you don't have the factories now. They already left. But what you can have is the automated factories, which would still include a lot of very cool jobs because someone's got to take care of the robots and fix them and maintain them and run the thing. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Plus, you're going to need lots of power plants. You're going to need transmission lines. You're going to need to build these new factories. That's construction jobs. That's electricians. These are people who need to know how to maintain this machinery, as you said. And some of this is going to be high-level engineering jobs and stuff like that. So we're not just talking about people who are laying concrete and stuff. So there's going to be lots of opportunity. And then the other thing to keep in mind is we are the largest consumer economy in the world. If we can actually produce the things we're consuming, $3 trillion of goods are imported into the United States every year. $3 trillion. If just a large chunk of that can stay in the United States, that's wealth that can go into other kind of investment. That investment will lead to more jobs. And that's not investment that's just sort of money printing and then it becomes part of GDP. That's real, actual wealth, tangible wealth. And that, I think, is the key to all of this. And I think the Trump administration knows it. And I think this is a big part of the plan.
Now,
Justin, it would almost be like we were helping our fellows Americans.
What a weird concept. Now, Justin, you mentioned data centers, right? And this is something that I feel like when people hear it, they just kind of gloss over it. And they're like, this sounds boring. But we all know it's such a big deal. Right now, it's currently over 4% of all of the energy usage. But by 2028, it's projected to be 12%. That is a huge jump. So why do they matter?
Yeah, well, you need, in order to operate artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence is powered by data. Data is going to be the new gold, the new oil. Data is going to be, it's an important part of that process of having artificial intelligence. Without data, even the most powerful AI system is pointless. You use data to train AI. That's how AI becomes more powerful and becomes more useful. So you need these massive data centers full of computing power, the sizes of multiple football fields, giant convention centers, and you need tons of them all over the place. And they use huge amounts of power. Like the amount of power that you have for whole cities go into some of these really big data centers. And so in order to have that data center, you need basically dedicated electricity generation for that. Power plants that just power the data centers. And that's the kind of development that we've already seen starting. And Texas is one of the leaders in that area, actually. A lot of investment is coming into Texas, hundreds of billions of dollars, potentially even trillions of dollars over the next 10 years to build data centers, build power plants around the data centers, and think of all the jobs and wealth that comes along with that.
Yeah, it really, I mean, it's unbelievable to think about the change that we're already seeing in front of our eyes, because it's already happening.
Yeah.
If you just look at the reality of what you see out there, it's already happening. But when you have Goldman Sachs saying that you're going to increase, right, by 2030, whatever it's 165%, right, of what you need, demand for power, and then you're going to have almost a third of that just go to AI. So, I mean, the race is on, and how are they going to be powered? I mean, where's this power going to come from?
Yeah, well, you need affordable energy, right? That's the key. Windmills and solar panels are not going to power the AI revolution. And I
thought we just build more of them all across the fruited plain. There'll be no birds left. Trump will be very angry. It'll be great.
I mean, it was always a stupid idea, and it has become even dumber. And over time, what you need is the best kind of energy generation that you can, the most affordable kind of energy, and that varies depending on where you are. I think nuclear energy is going to be a big part of all of this. And you see big tech companies investing heavily in nuclear power plants because that's what they want to build. And Donald Trump has come out on record. He said this recently. In fact, he said this in an interview with Glenn Beck recently with Donald Trump at the White House, where he said flat out, we're going to deregulate this. We're going to allow nuclear power plants to be built. We're going to let these AI companies treat these power plants as utilities, and we're just going to let them go crazy with this because this is the future of the global economy.
Well, I think it was interesting. You were talking about leveling the playing field with China. Let's dive into that a little bit more, because how is this related then to some national security issues, right? We know that everything is going to be powered, it's going to be all the data centers, all the power, all the AI. So how are we going to win this race?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I think that there is, if you put economics aside and you just look at concerns like national security and the importance of American workers and things like that. There's a moral argument and a strong moral argument, a strong geopolitical argument for having these AI centers built in America, which requires all of these power generation like nuclear energy and things like that. It's vital that this stuff is not based in China, where we can't trust what the Chinese government is going to do. And the rule generally is the Chinese government, the Communist Party of China, is very good at giving companies things, allowing people to make lots of money off of cheap labor. But the trade-off is you give up everything as a result of that. They are ultimately in control. You don't have any rights, and they can freeze your assets. They can throw people in jail. They can disappear people. That's totally fine in China. And so I think that most people who are interested in investing in this don't want it to be in China anyway. But if they can only build it there, that's where they're going to build it. So it's so important for the United States of America to be the center of this AI revolution that's coming. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have rules tied to AI to make sure that it is responsible and ethical and that it isn't depriving people of basic human rights, but it needs to be here because that's not going to happen in China.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we have to remember that this automation actually creates a lot of jobs, a lot of high-skilled jobs, and so it benefits us in that way. And I keep thinking about how on two levels we need this Hoover Dam level project. And America, that the new Hoover Dam, right, as it were, is finding the energy we need for this, and even building AI itself, and making sure that we have private and public sector involved, because the government's going to be using AI.
Right.
They already have plenty of server farms. So we know that that's going to happen. But I guess the big question is, where's the money come from for all this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's already been hundreds of billions of dollars, in fact, more than $1 trillion that have been pledged by a variety of investors. Some of them are foreign, some of them are domestic. The Trump administration has been trying really hard to make deals with the United Arab Emirates and other countries to bring in lots of investment. The UAE itself, over $1 trillion has been pledged to these kinds of investments in AI infrastructure and data centers and things. And all sorts of other investors domestically, Microsoft, et cetera, have been pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into this. And so the money is there. That's not the problem. The problem is we need to get the red tape out of the way. We need to make sure that it's responsible, but we need to make sure that these things can actually be built too.